Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Opening series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we're carrying on our look at the Budapest together with Torch version 2 and Torch version 3. Well, in previous videos I just showed you a little bit of background about the Budapest, and one of the things we noticed in the previous video, which sort of showed the ideal that the Budapest player is aiming for, was the power of having this knight on e5 once it recaptures the pawn, and the bishop on c5. Call them floating minor pieces that just sort of exerting some sort of vague pressure at the start on White's position, but when you combine it with a rook coming over along the third rank and a queen coming into h4, then it becomes very, very dangerous indeed. And that previous video, Skembris against Lyoki, well, that was a classic game. Definitely take a look at that video if you haven't seen it already. Well, a number of white players actually, understood this very, very well, and they came up with the idea of playing a very quick f4 to chase away the black knight from e5. Basically, get rid of those floating pieces, and white will just have a space advantage and a better position. That was the idea. So let's have a look at a couple of examples from Smyslov and Spassky. Good examples with white as to how they managed that. So just starting off again with the old classical line, bishop c5, e3, knight c6. And then let's have a look first of all at how Smyslov did it. So he played knight c3, and knight c takes e5 was played against him. And actually this is already a mistake, funnily enough. The point is that the earlier you take on e5, the earlier white can play f2 to f4 and chase away the knight. So black should actually play castles and maybe try and play rook e8 and then take on e5 at a late moment. And then hopefully white's already played some pieces to slightly more passive squares, and f4 is going to be a little bit less dangerous. But Smyslov's opponent played knight takes c5, so Smyslov reacted with takes f4 straight away, putting the question to that knight. And after knight c6, Torch tried knight g6 against Stockfish, but h4, h5, and then bishop e2, just lining up against that one, pardon me, was incredibly dangerous. So knight c6 played, and now Smyslov played bishop d3. And yeah, I mean, this is the point of black actually needing to delay taking on e5. I mean, until now we've just been seeing the bishop coming to e2, but here, because knight e5 has been played early and f4 has been inserted early, the bishop can come to d3, and it's quite irritating, really. I mean, if castles, then queen h5 is very embarrassing for black there. So what the opponent did, well, the opponent went a little bit bananas. He went h5, rather desperate attempt to stop queen h5, and Smyslov just sort of castled, played a3, bishop d2, and well, just basically started putting pressure on black's position. And black's position is just horrible here. You can't actually castle on either side because you've got huge weaknesses on both. The opponent played there, but after here and rook e1, well, very nice classical position for Smyslov to enjoy finishing off. The bishop came to d5, and then we're just going to push on with the pawns. So that was a bit of a disaster for black. And I think, it sort of shows that the power of this plan with f4. It's not immediately obvious that it's that powerful, but black doesn't have a great deal of presence in the center, and of course, the fact that this pawn's on c4, the fact that the pawn's on d7 here, black can't play a central break like d5 easily. The black knight often ends up, when he gets chased with f4, coming back to c6, which means that black doesn't have c6 and d5. So yeah, black really can end up very easily in a sort of a nothing position with just less space and nothing much to do. And so that's very, very big danger point for black. We're going to have a look at a game of Spassky's now against Ilescas Cordoba, another quite famous game in this line. I mean, Smyslov delayed playing bishop e2, hoping to get the bishop to get get the bishop to d3 in one go. Spassky played bishop e2, which is less fantastic, but still okay. Takes. Knight c3, castles, rook e8, and now king h1. So rather than just try and develop with b3 and bishop b2, Spassky plays king h1, Jeskas plays a5, and Spassky plays f4. Knight goes back to c6, and then bishop d3. So I mean, white is a little bit slower setting up the ideal setup than Smyslov was, but I mean, it's still pretty, it's still pretty decent somehow. Another plan for white is to play the immediate rook to f3, actually, just aiming to go rook g3, and then we're going to tee up later. Maybe play bishop d2, knight d5, bishop c3. Also pretty powerful for white. After bishop d3, well, bishop e3 is just really quite dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Well, actually, bishop e4 just traps the black rook, and queen d2 is going to be next. Obviously, you can't do anything like this because rook e1 will hit you on the back rank. So black played d6 and now queen h5 from Spassky. I mean, actually, the engines don't really think that this is so dangerous for black, but well, you can imagine it's a little bit worrying for black. I mean, the black king's knight has been exchanged. It's actually over here. So it just means that the black king is a little bit weak. The dark squared bishop is on an active square, but sort of cut off from returning. So it's risky for a human player, even if engines think it's perfectly fine. I mean, actually, the engines want to just play g6 and bishop d7, which is okay, but you're just simply worried as a human player with this. When you play g6, you create a hook for f5. So yeah, it's always a little bit worrying there. But the engines think that this is quite decent. One of the ideas, of course, is that if you do play e3 to e4 at some stage, black can fianchetto the bishop with bishop d4 to g7. It's not obvious somehow. Jeskas played h6, which does feel like the more natural human move. The engines give it 1.42 after this, so very dangerous. Rook f3, knight b4. Now Spassky played a slightly strange move, played bishop to e4, which it just feels like you're just exposing stuff, and you're not quite sure really why the bishop should be on e4 there. I mean, to be honest, you'd really think that if anything was going to come to e4, it would be the knight, or you'd maybe even want the pawn on there. So, the engine bishop b1 is also, to be honest, the more natural human move. I mean, we're just threatening rook g3, and then at some stage we'll go a3 and then just develop. The engine comes up with something quite neat, bishop d4, obviously aiming for this and just basically hoping to tie down the queen side, fianchetto the bishop. But after bishop d2, g6, looking to play the bishop round to g7. Well, I mean, there's queen h6, bishop g7, that's the basic idea. You'd have to go back to g5, and then you swap off, and white's lost quite a bit of play there. Actually, I'm saying swap off, but maybe there would even just be bishop f6 here. I'm just thinking, because if queen g3, then bishop h4 traps the queen. So yeah, actually that would be a forced draw by repetition. Wow, engines, so good. But actually takes and rook g3, bishop g7, queen g6, queen e7, f5 is the engine solution. And the threat of f6 is very, very strong indeed. I mean, we've also got ideas like a3, knight d5, just a very, very dangerous attack there. So bishop e4 is a little bit odd. Actually, the engines want to play d5 straight away. Takes bishop f8, get the bishop back, and then afterwards just play c6 and gambit it, and just really claim that that these pieces and this king are a little bit weak, and actually if there's no big attack coming, if we manage to cover our king side, then even the rook on f3 is misplaced. So interesting idea. Jeskas played c6, rook g3, queen f6. And well, after bishop d2, I mean, it is just getting rather worrying. We just need to work out how to get our bishop to c3, and it's going to be very, very dangerous. I'll just show you the rest of the game. It's not very particularly important here. A3 played, bit of a strange move there, really. Rook f1 looks very, very natural, just to bring the rook across. A3 played, king f8. Iescas getting rather worried. Bishop d3, the bishop goes back. We're looking for knight e4, bishop c3 at the right moment. Bishop a7, knight e2 even, threatening bishop c3. Knight c5, bishop c3, and here Iescas gave up his queen with takes and knight d3. But okay, you know, it's not really going to do the business. You're pretty sure about that. And Spassky won a few moves later. So yeah, interesting stuff. Huh? I mean, it's just interesting to see how white players sort of worked out, those two pieces, that knight on e5, bishop on c5. If I just let them float there, then that just adds gives some extra punch to a black kingside attack, and stop white from going f4 that easily if the bishop's on c5 and if white's developed the bishop to b2. So yeah, players like Smyslov and Spassky knew that they wanted to go f4, drive that knight away from e5 and put the pieces aggressively. But obviously, this wasn't the most efficient way of doing stuff. We're playing e3, bishop e2, and then later playing f4 and bishop d3. So yeah, I mean, we can start having a look now at what the engines want to do. But basically, it's this idea. This bishop on c5 and the knight on e5, when it comes there, they have to be driven away, but the engines are looking to do it much more efficiently and much more quickly. So let's have a look at that.